Welcome to the Chamber of Members podcast. Today's special guest is Shawn Nairn with Hot Rod Trailer Sales. We'll learn how he got into the trailer industry and how he grows his business year after year. First, a shout out to SBS Consulting Systems for sponsoring this week's episode. If your business needs to implement process improvements, technology integration, or just needs some IT support, reach out to my friend Sean Hendrick at SBS Consulting Systems. They want your problem. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making it out.
Absolutely.
So I may or may not look old enough. I'm actually Sean's uncle.
You look old enough.
Yeah, it's getting there. The grades are coming out. Once you hit 30, once you hit 35, you really start going downhill.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Yeah, I got the grade going in. For sure.
So it's kind of interesting how you came to own Hot Rod Trailer Sales, and really cool how much you've grown the business in just 2 years. I know you grew up working in trailers at Snyder Hot Shot in Worcester, family-owned business. Your mom, dad, Clinton, and Kim run it. Tell us a little bit about your experience, kind of how you got into the industry and what you're doing between time and how you came to own Hot Rod Trailer Sales.
Yeah, so I started back when I was 13. Some child labor law stuff there, but I was
family business. Yeah.
Yeah, I was mowing the lawn, pushing a broom, putting tools away, and just slowly over time, he taught me more and more how to do brakes and electrical wiring stuff, hydraulics. I just kind of kept building up with it.
Which I really appreciate, Clint, because I have him do my brakes and stuff now for free.
And so I did that all the way up through high school, and then I decided to kind of go off, do my own thing. Did some underwater diving stuff, went to college, got an engineering degree, which I'm not using very much anymore, but I was doing underwater bridge inspections.
Oh, wow.
And then, back in 21, the opportunity came to buy Hot Rod Trailer Sales, and it was a great way to just kind of be back home and not traveling so much and kind of expand on the family business we already had. So they paired really well.
Yeah. So Hot Rod Trailer Sales, where'd that start off at?
So they started down in St. Clairsville by Matt. He was there for quite a few years. And honestly, he ran into the problem of just he wanted a service side. And he didn't have the room for it. He didn't have the personnel for it. And my parents, they had plenty of room up at the shop for many, many trailers, and obviously they'd love to work on more. So they kind of paired up. That was back in 2018.
2018, yeah. So he moved up there and kind of two businesses coming together to kind of really,
exactly.
drive service and sales. So that's really cool. Awesome.
So can you share any advice that you wish you had prior to becoming a business owner?
It was definitely very different. It was all super new. Having a strong team in place in terms of an accountant and lawyer really look over everything, because, I was just some bright-eyed young kid looking at $1 million business. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. The numbers look good to me, but when you really kind of break everything down, there's just a lot there that the average person, unless you have that experience, you just don't know.
Right.
So I think having a strong team in place and somebody who's already been in the industry, or, somebody that you can feedback off of with some questions and answers.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really important to find before just going all in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. They always talk about mentors and having a mentor to kind of help you along. And that's exactly it. Yeah, for sure.
So I know a lot has happened in 2 years. What was the biggest challenge like during your first year, and how'd you overcome it?
The first year, it might sound dumb to a lot of people, but for me, it was all the little small things. It wasn't selling the trailers. I could talk about trailers all day long. It was all the dumb stuff on the taxes and the quarterlies and the true ups and having to do like DOT and MCs. And it's not that any of it is hard. It's just that you don't do it very often. It's either just once a month or the quarter or end of year stuff that I was always like, oh, well, you don't want to miss that because the government definitely won't like that, right? It was those small things that you had to really figure out how to do. And since you don't do it often, it just didn't burn into my brain very well.
Right.
So that was actually kind of difficult for me. Because like I said, the trailer sales stuff, I love doing that. Love talking to people all day long. But just the small little things that you don't really think about when getting into the business originally.
Right.
Are there any surprises, like obstacles of running the business, whether it's from, inventory or transportation?
Yeah, when I got in, there were a lot of obstacles that I had to face because that was around the COVID period. So supply chain issues was a constant problem. I could have sold every trailer they gave me, and I was constantly, at one point I was taking deposits on trailers. We were a year out, and that's a horrible thing to do. You just
I remember that.
I'd love to take your money, but honestly, it's going to be a whole year before I can even give you what you want. So that was a big issue. And then transportation was also a ginormous issue. I started a second company, NS Transportation, just so I could get my own trailers consistently on time without having to worry, because I was having to go through a bunch of channels before and deal with brokers, and having shipped all the way from Texas was just a constant nightmare. It was super expensive. Never knew if my trailers were going to come up intact. I lost a lot of wheels along the way, and it was just horrible. And ever since I started the other company, it's been fantastic. I have a great driver, and everything just comes up weekly in great condition. I'm never missing anything, and it's an ease of mind for sure.
Yeah, it's important because you have a lot of, you have a lot of your customers are, business customers, so they need their trailers for work. So it's not like, oh, I want something to haul my four-wheeler with, if it gets here 1 week or next week, it's fine. It's, hey, I'm running the road, every hour counts, every mile counts. So It's important to have, if you say the trailer's going to be here next week, they're driving 500-600 miles to pick up that trailer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better be there, ready to go.
Have the supply chain kind of issues kind of evened out?
Yeah, honestly, about 6 months ago, I would say I caught up pretty well.
Nice.
And ever since then, I've been able to get everything in here in about 2-3 week period, which is really kind of where I like to be at. So that's
Is
all.
that kind of the average, like 2 to 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that gives them enough time to kind of build it and get everything processed well. So that's a time frame that I like to be at.
Is everything built from scratch then? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
They do everything. Either I have a supplier out of Texas and then one over in Pennsylvania.
Nice. Okay.
So I know with buying the business 2021 and the struggles of supply chain, orders out for a year on the commercial side of the items. Obviously you were expecting a certain amount of sales when you bought this large business. Did you have to pivot into other aspects of that business to make sure your sales were meet to, make the loans and and all the other payments involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely tried to buy as much used as I could. Facebook Marketplace was kind of great for that.
Yeah.
Set an unlimited mile radius and was driving far to get stuff just so I could sell some stuff. I also bought a lot in leased amount. That way, for a lot of the commercial guys who were like, I need this now, we got to keep going. I can't wait that 9 months, 10, 12 months. At least then I had something to provide for them until their trailers came in. So I definitely expanded a rental fleet. I have about 18 trailers now that are on the road consistently.
Nice.
Oh, awesome. What would you say were the biggest risks you've taken? Were they out of necessity, or did you for desire or ambition or to grow? Or?
So the biggest risk initially was just buying the business. I mean, I was 24 at the time. $1 million loan is like just ginormous. I never wrote checks above $5,000 in my life, right? And then I was immediately writing $50,000, $60,000 checks weekly, and that was definitely eye-opening. It was shocking. It was scary for sure for a little while,
right.
Especially with the loan payments and everything. So just that initial aspect of it was huge. But then, so that would definitely would be for ambition and desire. And every step I've taken along the way has been to build up the company more. Okay, so started NS Transportation, that was another big risk, and there was a lot of learning to that. More loans to slap on top. Okay, and then just adding new trailer lines. Okay, so when I bought Hot Rod, we focused primarily on the commercial car hauling market. And now I'm trying to expand and hit every market I can. I carry everything from the small utilities to the larger goosenecks, some dump trailers, and so on.
Yes.
But adding those new lines on doesn't, believe it or not, the manufacturers aren't just like, yeah, sell me my stuff. They're like, no, they want you to have skin in the game. You got to spend a couple $100,000 just to have them there.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do when you're just starting from zero 2 years ago, and you got to build up those accounts to have those funds available to be able to do any of that. So then you really got to move this stuff. It's crunch time again. Like
Yeah.
we really got to get this product moving so I can keep things flowing.
Right.
So I know you've worked really hard this year to find a manufacturer for those goosenecks, those dump trailers. You have smaller car haulers, right? You have landscape trailers now. Kind of everything the local market would need as far as either the commercial side or residential side. What was that process? Who'd you end up going with ultimately, and why? Why'd you choose them?
So there is a National Trailer Association, and they do a big, huge show every year, which the last couple of years it's been down in Nashville. So we went down last year, and I really combed over a lot of different brands, talked to a lot of different reps, talked to all the big ones, Diamond C, Belmont, PJ, Big Tex, a lot of the names that our local guys would recognize. And I ultimately decided on Belmont. Just because of their location, their ability to work with me, and I generally really like their trailers. Okay, they just do a lot of things right that a lot of people aren't doing, and it kind of makes them a little bit higher ticket of an item, but it's worth it because at the end of the day, I mean, we do have the repair side, but I don't want to sell you something that's going to be right back for repair.
Yeah.
Right. I'd rather earn your trust off of the beginning, and then you just bring it back for the general maintenance down the road.
I remember that being quite a process this year because you're like, I'm not going to sell junk. I sell top of the line for the commercial car hauler, and I want top of the line for everything else.
Yeah.
And, just like cars and, trailers, you think, oh, they're just simple, but it's pretty important when you're like, hey, I need a good wiring harness so the salt doesn't decay this. I need good tires. I need things welded right. So obviously when you're putting 20, 30,000 pounds on a dump load or a gooseneck, that's important. You don't put 30,000 pounds on a car.
Right.
It doesn't take the same beating. Driving, me around or whatever. So, it's, they're not super complicated, but it's super important to get quality versus,
absolutely.
Something that.
And that's definitely something that'll set you apart too, is having that quality product. It makes sense.
For sure.
So what do you consider your competitive advantage to be? Because I know the trailer industry is, it's pretty competitive all around because, there's a trailer shop every 50 miles, right? Like 50, 60 miles, at least a big one. And there's like 60 different, players in the manufacturing world. So, kind of what sets you apart from, me driving 50 miles one way to save $200 or.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, there's a bunch of guys out there doing it. A lot of different brands to choose from. The big thing with me is when you call, it's just me. It's me all day long. The number right there, that's my cell phone number. I've taken calls at midnight trying to help out people before. I don't do a high pressure sales pitch. I'm not really trying to, I want the sale, but not at your expense. Okay. At the end of the day, I'd rather, I started working on this stuff young and I really know it well. And if you explain to me a little bit, hey, this is what I'm wanting to do with it, I might try and say, hey, I think you might be a little bit better with this trailer over here rather than what you thought you wanted. So I really just want to try and provide the best experience for the customer and make sure that they end up with something they really need rather than try and get like, oh, you think you want this? Okay, well, I'm going to try and sell this to you right now. Like it's just really not how I work. I can kind of answer anything and everything, all the way down to the bearing part numbers on that trailer axle. So I probably overkill a little bit with the knowledge side rather than focusing on, I got to get this sale.
Yeah, I know. I've been at a shop a lot. throughout the year, and it's like, people coming in just like, oh, well, I saw my buddy had this trailer, but I want to do this. It's like, well, you're hauling something completely different, or your goal is different. Like, you need to pivot a little bit. It's like pretty close to what you want, but you need, either a dually, or you need, better tires, you need better shocks, you need a stronger frame. So that's like, it's really important than just like trying to sell what you have on the lot. And actually, when you're using it for work, you need to get the right thing, or else you're going to be up a creek 6 months later with a huge, trailer loan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, he really walks his customers through that. So I think that's pretty cool.
So let's test the knowledge. Yeah, can you give me an industry tip that may be beneficial for people to know?
Yeah, so if you're looking to buy a trailer, I think one thing right off the rip is it's not exactly like a car. Okay, everyone's like, okay, well, if I got 24s are out right now, okay, it's that time everybody's transitioning. But I promise you, on the trailer side, there is no difference between a 22, 21, 23, 24. These companies, they've been building the trailers the same way for years and years and years, right? So if you're okay with not having that 24 model, and you're okay with having that 23, there's going to be dealers stuck with 23s here going into January, February. That's a great time to buy, because there are a lot of people who do care about having that 24 model, right?
Yeah, just that number on it, even though if nothing's changed.
There is
just that
no
number.
difference between the trailer, but at the end of the day, you can get a deal on that 23, and it's the exact same trailer, So if I think beginning of the year is a really, really good time to buy, because they want to move that stuff off their lot.
Right.
And then when you are looking at trailers, don't be afraid. If you're able to, crawl on the ground, look underneath, see if you see exposed wiring. Okay, that's something you never want to see in Ohio. Like, there's so much salt and brine on the road. Wiring is typically people's biggest nightmare when it comes to the trailers. So if you see any exposed wiring, you don't want that. If you can, try and look at the welds, see if there's a bunch of splatter around it, or if they look really nice and clean. And, especially around the wintertime, you can tell how the paint's going to kind of hold up, if it's already turning or not. It'll really show what kind of process they did in building the trailer. Ask a lot of questions. What is their cleaning process? Big thing with painting is powder coating, right? Everyone knows powder coating's like kind of the greatest thing, but it's not if it's not prepped properly. If somebody just wipes a chemical on it and throws it in the oven, it's not great. I would rather somebody sandblast the trailer and use a really good urethane paint compared to a powder coating. So just ask a lot of questions, and don't be afraid of those 23 models. You'll get a discount here in a couple months. Don't worry.
Nice.
So real quick before we run out of time, I know you have a customer appreciation event coming up. Was it last Friday in October?
Yep, October 27th from noon to 5. We're going to have a food truck there. Come get some good free food, some warm drinks, hot chocolate, coffee. We're going to have all our trailers out in display, do a couple little raffle things. If you need some parts, hit us up while you're there as well. Or if you're looking for another trailer, talk to me or Kim or Clint. We'll be able to help you out.
If you need a schedule service, they can do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
When the slow time comes for some of those contractors, it's good to get those in during the winter and get the brakes done.
Perfect time.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice
Thank you
talking.
for having me.
So that's a wrap for our show. Just don't forget to visit the cantonchamber.org and look at all the coming events we have coming up. So they have some fall networking events, and there's always tip clubs every week. And get connected. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.